now let's talk about blue renewable energy. This was ranked as a top interest sector in our survey, as you saw a few minutes ago. And blue renewable energy refers to the offshore generation of clean and renewable power. This sector covers those three segments you can see below, which is the offshore wind energy, offshore photovoltaic production, and ocean energy. But here, this last one, ocean energy, as you probably know, it includes several technologies that are used to exploit the potential of tides and waves, so tidal and wave energy, as well as geothermal gradients and salinity gradients to also generate clean power. There's a vast potential for sustainability as in this sector as energy consumption is expected to rise. And unlike fossil fuels, which are both pollutant and finite, renewable energies are definitely cleaner sources of energy. Here we have the value chain. So we can see that this sector uses raw materials and components as an input for the manufacture of energy technology and infrastructure. And R&D activity and project development is quite relevant in this sector specifically to increase the levels of maturity of the technologies in the sector across the value chain, not only before the production and storage, but also during this production and storage and also in the distribution and connection to the grid. It's interesting to see the maturity of the several technologies. Offshore wind is clearly the only type of blue renewable energy that has a wide-scale adoption at this moment, and it's in the phase of commercial deployment. The majority of the other technologies are still in their early stage development. The EU is a pioneer and a world leader with 44.5% of total installed capacity and generally has huge potential due to several things like strong winds, tides and waves, and also the vast coastline and the European Economic Zone also contributes to this competitive advantage. We can also see that Europe is leading in the offshore wind energy segment, being the main producers Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, and Belgium. You can see this on the right side of the slide. And also would like to point out that in terms of research on floating wind energy, France, Spain, and Portugal are leading the way. Just to conclude here on European leadership, it's interesting to see that the majority of wind farms installed worldwide were actually produced and set up by EU firms. There are great growth prospects in the EU for this sector until 2030, an expected 16% compounded annual growth rate, reaching 63.2 gigawatts by the end of this period. This is, of course, in terms of capacity installed. Currently, blue renewable energy accounts for 1.5% of total energy capacity in Europe, but by 2030, it's expected that it will represent not 1.5%, but 5%. And by 2050, the capacity of offshore wind by itself alone will be 25 times higher than it is today. What is pushing this growth that you can see on the left graph? The key drivers are, of course, energy demand increase, as already mentioned, the attractiveness of marine energy sources due to the environmental concerns, and also advances in R&D and projects in operation will create higher levels of maturity for the technologies, will eventually reduce the cost of electricity generated from marine energy sources, reduce also project risks, and enable more economies of scale. So we will have to wait. In terms of growth limitations, would like to point out that this sector still requires extensive initial investments on infrastructure and resources, being at the moment costlier than onshore energy production, and it also needs suitable locations. For example, to be closer to the coast, to be connected to the grid, to have fixed wind farms require a specific level of depth in the ocean, and it's logistically hard to do maintenance in the ocean. So we really need to increase levels of maturity of existing technology that it's still highly costly and have in general low production capacity compared to other sources at the moment. This sector faces some sustainability challenges, as potential ecological impacts in the habitat of ocean animals, because we are using underwater devices in some cases, and all the infrastructure required can affect these animals and have impacts on, for example, migration patterns of seabirds. Also, changes in hydrologic conditions can happen around the plants. For example, the corrosion can affect water quality. However, there are technologies that are tackling these issues already, and the sector overall presents a great value proposition, not only because ocean energy is expected to match and exceed our projected future energy needs, but it also has benefits compared to other industries like shipbuilding and refit, and to create new high-quality jobs in line with the global energy transition. Definitely will be able to contribute to the mitigation of climate change and help minimize health and safety risks compared to the oil and gas industry. Much more interesting for investors, here's some examples of innovations that are occurring in this sector. We'll have a deep dive afterwards with one of our experts here. But let me just mention that digitalization of maintenance, that includes all the digital interfaces between control systems, connected sensors and other devices to do maintenance. There's a company called Arachnocopter by Arboreal Intelbert, which is an example of a product that is already marked and being used by firms like Iberdrola that does maintenance on farms offshore, even being submersible. There's also other innovations like grid-connectable floating wind farms, floating tidal devices, wave energy production systems. For example, in this case, there's Core Power Ocean AB, which is already installing devices for wave energy production in a way that is scalable. And other innovations such as improved connection lines to the grid, multi-purpose technologies, hybrid electricity generating systems that integrate multiple energy sources, which in the end optimize space and infrastructure usage. But as said, we'll have a deep dive on the innovations for this sector afterwards.